All right, hello everybody. This is Brad Dohack, Gulf Point Properties, and as always, what we're looking to do is bring more value. And so what I decided, obviously we had a hurricane that came through in September, and Irma came through, and I thought it would be a really good idea to bring in an insurance company, and a real expert in the field. And so today I have with me Kevin Koelemeyer, who's one of the owners of Regency Insurance, and we're just going to kind of discuss some of the outcomes from the hurricane. So Kevin, can you tell us a little bit about Regency and who you guys are, where you're located, and what you do?
Sure. First, thanks to Gulf Point Properties, Brad Dohack, actually a very close friend of mine for a number of years now, so thank you for having me. But we're Regency Insurance. We're in Fort Myers. We cover the whole state of Florida. My name's Kevin. We opened the firm January of 2012, so going on 6 years now here. About 12 years in the industry. We are an independent insurance agency, which means that we have access to multiple options, multiple carriers. We represent close to 30 different home insurance companies and a multitude of auto insurance companies that are placing business here in Florida. So a lot of misnomer out there that Florida is a tough market, which it is, but there are many companies that are fighting for your business today.
And so, let's just kind of get into it as far as it goes. We had a storm. I'm in real estate, so naturally the people care about the real estate and how that affected things. So, after the storm, can you kind of just tell us about, claims? Was it as bad as we thought it was going to be? At the end of the day, are people going to be whole, or, how does it affect things?
Sure. So it was a big storm. I believe at one point in time, the entire hurricane engulfed the whole state of Florida. So being an agency that covers the whole state, we have been inundated with claim activity. Good news is it wasn't as bad as initial projections, but that doesn't mean that we weren't hurt. One of my top carriers, as an example, in 2016 had 26,000 claims throughout the whole year. They are in Florida and they are in Texas, so they've had a very busy couple months, to the tune of 32,000 claims in a 6-week period of time. So,
wow. And claims can be, that doesn't mean, because while wind was an issue, it was mostly trees and some pool cages and those types of things. So a claim could be anything. A claim could be I had a couple of shingles or tiles that were cracked on my roof, but I'm claiming that, correct? It doesn't mean
correct.
that, these are 32,000 people that
right.
lost everything.
Correct. And that's actually the advice is if there was damage, whether it be minimal, get that claim turned in, let the insurance company come out and do their assessment. We are seeing a lot of claims that are coming underneath deductibles. In Florida, the standard hurricane deductible is 2% of your coverage of your home. So if you insure a home for $300,000, it's a $6,000 hurricane deductible. But it's been a great learning experience. The company that I mentioned, you can't staff for 32,000 claims. So it's a great learning experience for them to go through their processes and constantly trying to improve upon things. Same thing goes with our agency. We've got 40 to 50 folks that work here. You can't staff for a massive event like that because the next day we come in, we have 1,000 phone calls. It's a great learning experience for everybody.
Yeah, and a funny story. So my business partner, my father, Dick, he had contacted one of his clients, and after the storm, so they had contacted a screen repair company. And screen repair is one of the biggest issues that happen because the screens will blow off fairly easily. And this small company, I think there was 8 or 9 employees of the company. They typically would handle, anywhere from 10 to 12 phone calls in a given day, and they had a voicemail. You couldn't get in touch with anybody there. There was a voicemail that said, within 48 hours of the storm, we had over 10,000 something calls, and so please leave a message. We'll get to you when we can. So, what happens in that situation sounds like it's a very urgent matter for a short period of time, and
correct.
Then things kind of get worked out from that perspective.
Absolutely. We're now starting to see, the initial projections were 60 to 90 days to get claims rolling and processed and that kind of thing. So we're working our way through that. We're seeing the carriers it's not for lack of effort. They are getting back to everyone as quickly as they can. It was one of those things where it ended up being a very large storm, a very massive, from a geographical perspective, a very large storm. Damages, some people were dramatically affected. A lot of folks we're seeing weren't nearly as bad, but it seemed like the whole state. So claims are progressing. It is taking a little bit longer than initial projections.
Sure. And so, the other side of the story, which it wasn't as big of a story as it could have been, was the flood side of everything.
Absolutely.
The predictions were that the storm surge was going to kick back around, and anybody, remotely near the Gulf of Mexico was going to, be underwater. So what I have seen from my perspective and from a real estate demand point of view is that has become a topic of conversation. Flood. Am I in a flood zone? Is the homes that we are now looking at, are they in a floodplain? Are they not in a floodplain? Talk to us a little bit about how flood works in general.
Sure. So when we talk flood, we're talking rising water, right? So a pond behind the home is overflowed and comes through the property, or the Gulf of Mexico storm. We hear the term storm surge when waters are pushed through an area. That's a flood claim. Not when the roof gets blown off and rains come inside the home. That would be regular home insurance. So flood is traditionally a separate policy. We are seeing some carriers start to do endorsements onto existing coverage. So just be careful if you do go that route, that you are very clear, and it's right there on your declarations page. But traditionally, you'll see it as a secondary policy. And then the one thing we hear most often is, well, I'm not in a flood zone. Incorrect. The whole state of Florida is a flood zone. It's just whether or not we're primary versus secondary. And really when that comes into play is if there's a mortgage on the property, if you're a primary zone, which typically is known as an A or AE, there are some other terms for it. If there's a mortgage, then that mortgage company is most likely going to require that you carry flood insurance on that property. And then if we're in a secondary zone, it's known as an X zone. That means that according to FEMA's maps, you're not as likely to incur flood damage. It does not mean we should not have it. The benefit to being in an X zone is it just makes flood insurance less expensive. But in my professional opinion, everybody should have flood insurance. If we look at Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Katrina, a lot of areas that have been impacted are in secondary flood zones.
There's not exactly, mountains and hills in Southwest Florida, so your recommendation is, even if and from a real estate perspective, we look at it as the FEMA says it's out of a special flood area, outside, if it's in that X zone that
Correct.
You're referring to. But even then, it doesn't mean that it's impossible, that you could still have a flood that happens. And part of the storm, a couple weeks before, we had a significant rain event.
Absolutely.
That caused, clogging of sewer systems and those types of things.
Yep.
That debris was in there, and then the actual storm comes,
Yeah.
and then some of the streets. I live outside of a special flood area, but there was water that you couldn't really get in or out of the home, and I know you have that in your neighborhood as well.
Correct. We saw it out in well east of I-75. We saw homes that had flood intrusion. So there's no rhyme or reason per se. We could have homes, when you think Cape Coral, there's a lot of zones that are X zones in Cape Coral. You're still surrounded by a body of water.
So the whole idea here is we're trying to protect our investment, right? So what do you recommend for somebody to do? Because not all insurance companies are created equally. What is the best way for somebody to go about making sure, A, that they're getting the right coverage, and B, that they're not overpaying? Because people care
Absolutely.
about both of those things.
Without a sales pitch for myself, I think that's where we come into play. Being that we have 30 markets, our slogan here is multiple carriers, multiple options, one call. I love to do annual reviews. That way we can make sure that things don't always stay the same, right? So there's lifestyle changes. You could be making a purchase of a diamond ring, as an example. There's a million things that can happen. We want to make sure that year over year we're protected. And maybe you make a renovation to the home. As Brad said, we want to protect that investment. So it's a year over year review, and to make sure that we're we're paying the proper rate, is let's do that annual review to make sure markets change in Florida very rapidly on the home insurance side. So especially now, we're going to start seeing some rate change due to the storm. What happens is insurance is a byproduct of what's called reinsurance. Insurance companies buy insurance for their overall portfolio. And in Florida, the folks that are doing that reinsurance are the folks that are doing the reinsurance in the coastal Texas and the Puerto Ricos. All areas have been hit pretty hard this year. So we're going to start seeing that reinsurance cost go up, which will in turn raise home insurance. So it's a good time now to start doing those reviews, and let's look at the market as a whole and make sure that the portfolio is protected overall.
And do you have any idea as far as what kind of increase that we could see, or any indication?
Yeah, it's going to vary. I mean, we have some carriers right now taking 10 to 20%. Tri-County, which is Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach on the other side of the state, they're going to start seeing some pretty heavy rate there as well. But I would expect over the next, and this is one of those things that's going to take time.
Yeah.
It takes a couple years for a rate to make its way through a market, but we're going to see 20 to 30.
And so I have my homeowner's insurance through Regency.
Yep.
And one of the nice things that has been, some companies may take a bigger increase than others, or some may go down year over year. And it doesn't mean that if I have one that I should stay with that company, because there may be a better option, a reputable better option that costs less money, based on where the home is located, what year of construction it is, those types of things. So
yeah, Florida's a very niche market. It's kind of like leasing a car, right? So we have one manufacturer has a really good package right now on their car of choice. Your lease comes up, and that company still has a good car and still has a great product, but there's another company that's running a lease special for their comparable product. So same thing. We don't represent anybody but A-rated carriers, and it's literally, we have the technology to, when we run a rate, we run it through all of our companies. We're not loyal to anybody but our clients. And we're going to make sure that we're going to put you in the best place. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to place you with the lowest option. There are times where it makes sense to stay put. We don't have to go back through underwriting and wind mitigation reports and all of those things. So
got it.
Every scenario is unique and different of itself.
And so really, it comes down to a conversation that has to take place about the unique scenario.
Correct.
Because the beauty of real estate is that every property is unique, for one reason or another. But geographically speaking, everybody is unique. You could be closer to a fire hydrant, and that gives you potentially a better rate than the neighbor down the street.
And we'll hear it. We'll bring a new client in. It's like, wow, why is this so much cheaper than my current? And that's one of those things where you have two companies that are fighting over this one property. You take a different property somewhere else, across town, across county, and it's vice versa. So it's very much, it's unique. It's called single risk modeling, and most companies have gone that route, where each home, even next door neighbors, are treated individually of themselves based on the rate structure.
So I'm not jealous of you from that perspective to have to, find the best product given the specific situation. So, kudos to you for being able to pull that off. How would somebody get in touch with you if they wanted to do a review, or they're looking at changing companies? How do they get in touch with you at Regency?
Always available. RegencyINS.com, 239-628-4344. Kevin at RegencyINS.com if you wanted to go that route as well. We've got a great website. Actually learned a lot from Brad for our website, and it's helped us quite a bit. But that's a great way to get us. We're 8 to 5:30. Phone lines are open, but I'm 24/7 on my email as well. That's
true. Well, sir, thank you so much. Really appreciate time today, and hopefully you found that valuable. And have a happy holidays. Everybody have a happy holidays.
Thanks again.
Thank you.